We could get 10 people probably.
Yeah.
The show.
You could play on my roof. You know, I have a rooftop, and I would be more than happy to have you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be appropriate because the first real European shows were on a rooftop in Spain.
Right.
I was living in an apartment in northern Spain, and David came over to visit me, and we rehearsed for 2 weeks up on top of the building.
Wow. What part of Spain?
That was Espatia, the Basque Country, near San Sebastian. So yeah, David and I made the first record before Monte came along. And then I moved to Spain, got a job teaching English, and then David came over, and we just bussed in the streets and tried to find a few shows and hand out the record. But to get ready for that, doing that, we rehearsed on the roof because that was the only place we could get away with the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How did you end up working as an English teacher in Spain? Did you intentionally move away from the US, or?
I'm going to give you a shortened version of that. So I was going to go to art school in London, and I had traveled to London, England, numerous times before that. And every time I went to England, I got strip searched and interrogated because my name is Sean Aaron Kirkpatrick, very Irish. And at the time, the IRA was killing all the English people in Ireland, right? So I went over to go to art school, like they always did. They interrogated me and did their whole thing and said, "I'm sorry, we have reason to believe you've done this and that." And then they stuck me on the boat back to France, to Calais, where I flew into Paris to go to art school in London. Anyways, so I was like, fuck, what am I going to do now? I paid all this money to go to art school. And luckily I had met a guy from northern Spain surfing like the day before I left. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey, this is my predicament." He said, "Oh, come visit me in San Sebastian." So I went to San Sebastian, fell in love with it, and he found me a job teaching English. So I stayed for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that whole time I had went home for the summer to make a record with David, the first record. Spent the whole summer with David making it, and I came back to Spain to work again, and David mixed the record and then sent me a bunch of copies. I took them up to Belgium where we had some success in finding a booking agent. Anyways, that's why David came over to meet me.
I see. And he was pretty flexible at the time?
So that's how Monte came into the
when
picture.
they were in Spain playing on the rooftop, I was a promoter, publicist. And so I did all the radio and press promotion for the first Swell album. But I knew these guys. I mean, Sean and I played together in bands like back to like 1981. Wow. And I played with David on some of his demos in like 1987, a couple of years before Swell, or 1988 or something. When Sean had met David and he said, "Hey, I know a bass player." So we're all kind of connected in the San Francisco scene.
Right.
We were all working together. And then the first album was doing so well on college radio and on the press. We were getting so much good press that when these guys came back from Spain, we had to form a proper band because we had gigs. There was a magazine in San Francisco that wanted to put us on the cover. And I was like, "Hey, we have a cover shot, but we don't have a band." And so we actually formed the band like an hour before we did the photo shoot.
Yeah, and John Dettman, who's going to be singing on this tour and played on Well, was an old friend of mine from Santa Barbara who just moved up to San Francisco, and I was roommates with David. So we like grabbed him and said, "Okay, you're in the band now."
Yeah, you're the guitar player. Now here we are, 32 years later, and we have the original lineup with our friend Niko playing guitar, who was the longest touring guitar player with Swell from like 1993 till 2003, whatever.
Okay. All right.
It's basically the original people, except for David.
Except for David. He's here in spirit, though.
All right. And who's singing?
Mostly John Dettman.
He's playing the acoustic guitar. He's being the David.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works out because, as I said, John lived with David, and David more or less taught John how to play guitar. And David was kind of a mentor to John. There was, I think, 6 years difference in age or more. So John kind of looked up to David and really, you know, took in who David was. And so I think John has a good idea and approach on how to pull this off or be, you know, presentable as Swell. Hard shoes to fill.
Yeah, and what's his angle? I suppose it must be very delicate to not sound like you're trying to emulate anything, but on the other hand, it's a tribute tour, so you know, it's a thin line, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we want to sound as swelly as we can, you know, and having the rhythm section, the original rhythm section, and Niko, who's been playing these songs forever, and just the way John has fit in. I mean, he's doing really well. And so I think that if people close their eyes, it might, you know, they'll think it's the old Swell.
On that note, there will never be the Swell that was, obviously.
Yeah.
David was huge in Swell, and but the first 4 records we were all really a huge part of. Monte and I especially, but John was on Well, as I said, and he also toured on the first album. Niko, as Monte said, has been playing these songs live for a long time. So it's in us, you know, and so we are Swell, minus who David was. And so if people can realize that, in fact, you know, it's not what Swell was, they'll have a wonderful time, because I think it sounded pretty good. Yeah. We're happy with it.
It's so moving to hear you talk about all this. It's incredible. And how did this tour come about? How, you know, what sparked your initiative in the first place?
Well, before David passed, Sean and I and David were trying to figure out a way to do a tour, and we almost did in 2017, but then that fell apart. And after he died, our agent in Belgium, Peter Verstralen, asked if it was something that we wanted to do. And Sean and I had been talking about it, like, should we do something? Should we try? And we were like, no, how are we going to find a singer? How are we going to find somebody to do it right? And we thought about, like, we could ask Tom York. We could ask Mark Kozelik. We could ask Mark Eitzel, you know, people like that. And in the end, Sean asked John, and it was natural, you know. And then Peter, he spent a lot of time trying to talk promoters into taking a risk on having us come and do this tour, because people were very skeptical, like, how can you do this without David? Really? And Peter is a great agent, and so he was able to get us enough shows to bring us over.
Okay.
Yeah, and also when David first passed, obviously it was very emotional. I mean, I didn't think I would, but I put on, finally, after about a week, I put on What I Always Wanted. And I'm like, fuck, I just bawled, you know, just cried and cried. I'm like, we have to do something about this. We have to represent, you know, while it's still fresh in our hearts and mind, do some shows, maybe it'd be in California, which would be easy. But ultimately, we came across Peter, as Monte said, and Europe made sense. So, yeah, it'll be emotional. I mean, I'm just talking about it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's going to be very heavy for us.
Sure. I mean, on April 12th, it will be 2 years since David's passing, and you will be playing a gig in Germany that night, right?
Yeah, it'll be April 12th.
It'll be 1 year, not 2 years.
1 year? All right.
Yeah, he died in April of 2022.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and we're playing in Germany that night.
So, yeah, how do you, you know, anticipate that particular night, and you know, and the whole tour, of course, but You know, do you think it's going to be even heavier that particular day?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of thinking about this tour as a memorial every night.
Yeah.
You know, and so that night will just be a little more poignant.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Bielefeld is a small university town. I don't know if there'll be a huge fan base there. It would have been great if April 12th was Paris, but it's not. But regardless, you know, we'll have fun, and obviously David will be very present that day. We'll try to create it so he is present. But we haven't spoken a ton about it, but I personally would like to do some kind of minimal, small ceremony before the show, you know, just to let people know that, to say this is a tribute to Dave, our friend David. I don't know what that looks like at this moment, but it would be nice to set the mood and not be morose or you know, too somber, but celebrate it. I don't know what it looks like, but we'll do something.
Great. Yeah. Do you know the venue you're going to play at in Paris, Petit Bain? Have you ever been there?
I have. I went there when it first opened in 2001, maybe.
Okay. It's a great venue.
I didn't play there, but
okay. Yeah, it is a great place. Yeah.
That's it. Nice.
Yeah. It's on the water, on the Seine River. Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a barge.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't look like it though. It looks like it looks more like a cabin on the water or something, but it's really a great place. Yeah.
cool.
So you've already mentioned some song titles, but what other songs have you been working on? How are the rehearsals going? And could you clarify why some of the songs, you know, at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that there are some songs that you're not going to play. So, you know, how does the selection come about?
Well, I think we just know innately which songs are too fragile to play because we tried them in the past. Smile, My Friend being one. So we picked.
We're going to play Smile.
I mean,
You're so right.
You're so right. The one you played. Yeah, Smile, My Friend we're doing. I don't know. We just picked the songs we connected to the most, I think, and feel are the best representation of this tour.
Yeah. And without David, we didn't want to get too complicated. We wanted to keep things that felt very much like that is a Swell song that everyone knows. You know, I mean, we're playing 20 songs or something.
20. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe more. If somebody wants us to play more, but we have, you know, we're playing a few off of each of the first 4 records. We're playing a lot of 41.
Yeah, there's 4 songs from each record at least, but 41 probably has the most. It does.
Yeah, probably playing 6 songs from 41.
Well,
we're playing almost the whole album.
Yeah.
Well,
to me represents, it feels the most live. So it felt the easiest to pick from that album. It's a little more heavy. I don't know. The songs just translate well live.
Mm.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure that we'll play some that people won't expect, but then we're not going to play ones that people want to hear probably, because there's some that we just play. There's some that even when David and all of us were touring, there were a lot of songs that we just never played live because they were too hard to play live. They didn't come across. Especially songs on Too Many Days Without Thinking. There's a lot of songs on there that are just really hard to pull off live.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. And on 41, like You're So Right, we played maybe 5 times total in our whole career because we just couldn't get it right.
Mm.
We write so much of the stuff in the studio. Swell has never been a band that jammed and worked on songs live as a band.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was done on tape. And so everything was created that way. And so sometimes when you create that way, you're making something cool as a recording, but it's not possible to do live.
Yeah, and not even thinking about, can we do this live? Because of course we want the song to be the best it can be.
Yeah.
I will say that Well, of all the albums, was more of, if you remember, some of the songs we would jam out. You
That's
know,
true.
David would present something and go, let's check this out. Because at that time we were kind of a band because we were playing live a lot. So we'd sit in the studio and, you know, work parts out. And hence I feel the album Well translates better live than most.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Get High, for example, does have kind of a live feel to it for sure.
Oh yeah, we played Get High a lot.
Yeah, we'll be playing that.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And it is true that some songs off of For All the Beautiful People, for example, or the previous record, do sound a bit like the studio and the production process, which is part of the identity of the band, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned we're doing songs only from the first 4 records because, as well, those first 4 records we definitely were emotionally and physically a part of. Where I left the band after too many days without thinking, and then he started having issues right shortly after that. We released one more record with David, and the next record was kind of rewritten. Completely after you left.
Yeah.
We are playing one song that's not on any album. It's called "This Is How It Starts." Do you know that song?
Yeah, love it.
Sub Pop single initially, and then it got put on Bastards and Rarities and anything else.
It was a B-side on a single
For Sub Pop
from For All the Beautiful People.
Oh, you used it as well. Okay. Anyways, I love. That's probably my second or third favorite Swell song. So we're playing that, which is a fragile song. We're still trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Hasn't made the list completely yet.
Yeah, we're trying.
Great. I have a bit of a short story before it will lead me to my next question, but you know, just to set the tone, I was touring with Radar Brothers a long time ago, and you know, Jim Putnam had kind of you know, touring jokes, and one day he said, "Okay, here's my impersonation of David's touring persona." And he tucked his cap on his head, folded his arms, and he stopped talking for the next 10 minutes. And it was hilarious. So do you think it was a pretty faithful impersonation? Would you say that it was actually quite relevant to, you know, imitate him this way?
Yeah, especially from that tour. We played 30 shows with Radar Brothers.
Wow, 30.
In Europe, and we got to know them very well. And David, he liked to be really quiet. He liked to be on his own. He never felt comfortable being on tour. He never felt comfortable being on stage. He didn't like to talk to people. He especially didn't like to do interviews. He'd make me do all the interviews. He would just be like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So yeah, him just like sitting there, that's kind of his personality. But I mean, other times he would be in a really good mood and he would be hilarious.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a mixture of many things emotionally. You know, yes, he was uncomfortable in the spotlight, and he was sometimes not the best friend. And other times was amazingly warm and, you know, supportive and curious and inquisitive. He was complicated.
Yeah.
He was definitely a lot.
Okay. And part 2 of my story is that in November 2008, I got to play with David and what was still called Swell at the time, even though you guys were not in the band. And you know, it is true that David was indeed pretty withdrawn and taciturn. At some point, I kind of cornered him and told him, you know, 41 is like the Inner Silent Way of my generation. It's such an important record for me. It's like in my top 3 ever, blah, blah, blah. And he just looked at me without saying anything. And it was very awkward. But he opened up a bit later when I told him about my hometown. Which is it's called Saint-Étienne in France, not too far from Lyon. And it's a former mining city with a working class mindset, and it used to be run by a communist mayor at some point. And I told him about this, and he was like, now you've got me interested. And, you know, again, do you think that's you know, a pretty revealing example of, was he, for example, very much into politics or, you know, culture or the history of places you visited, you went to?
I would say so. I mean, David was a very well-read man. He was constantly reading. He was really smart. He always wanted to talk about, like the history and politics of a place. He was really curious about that kind of thing. I mean, he would surprise me a lot. Where it would just be like, we would be talking about something, we would be somewhere, and he'd be like, you know, this place was, you know, whatever. He would have a whole history of a place. It would be because he read it in a Ernest Hemingway book or something. You know, he connected everything like that.
I know he was interested in financial information as well. We'd be on tour and I'd buy the Herald Tribune, the international paper, and I'd always throw away the financial section. He's like, that's the best paper. Why are you throwing that away? Yeah, he was, you know, whether or not he utilized the information he was learning on finances, he was interested in it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, he read The Economist.
Economist as well. Yes, I saw that.
I think he subscribed to The Economist.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So had it been a long time since you'd last listened to Swell before this tour? Or, you know, did you regularly listen to Swell?
I don't listen to it much. I kind of have bittersweet memories of it all. So it was hard for me to listen to Swell, although my kids listen to it. I have a 12-year-old and a 20-year-old, and they've been listening to it off and on for the last 10 years. So that's all I ever really heard of it. And now that we had to relearn or reacquaint ourselves with the songs, I've gone back and obviously listened to all 4 of the first albums, and I feel, dare I say it, and I don't want to sound braggadocious, that I'm proud of what we did. First 4 albums especially, you know, it's stands the test of time. That's how I feel. These songs are relevant still. So I'm happy to play them for all of the people that will be there.
Yeah.
What about you, Monte?
Anyways, that was the beginning of the end of that tour, because, you know, I don't know, Monte thinks it had something to do with his health, and he used that as an excuse to not go. But I took it as, oh shit, David's now seeing the fact that this is what can happen when you are in a band. Other people have opinions, you know, we're not hired guns.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's, I listened to it then as well, and then let it go, because again, another heartbreak, and we were so close. I think ultimately for me, while I let go of listening to Swell, is I had bigger aspirations. I thought we could really be something. And I partly take the hit for not making us a bigger band. I canceled a tour once in the States. You know, I was having some hard times, and midstream I said, I can't do this anymore. David and I were more like, fuck the industry. Let's just do it the way we want to do it. Monte was a little smarter with the industry, played the, not necessarily the game, it's not the right word, but he just knew what it took, you know? So, but David and I kind of messed up a little bit more. And so that's hard for me. You know, it's like, I would like to have financial, a little more security and let more people know that the music is really good, you know, hit the audience. But anyway.
Yeah. I suppose you've already read about it, but, you know, John Peel called you the next big thing, right? And
yeah,
that's you know, the curse of Swell.
Yeah.
Well, right at that time, things were really happening. We got like big management. We signed to a major label. All this stuff happened, and that made David want to crawl into a hole. It was like he liked the fact that we were getting this attention on one side, but then he rebelled against it on the other side, and he did everything he could to sabotage the whole thing because he didn't feel like he deserved it or something. And so, yeah, he poked holes in it constantly until it deflated.
Right. Yeah. Somehow I'm reminded of Mark Linkous. I got to meet him as well And for some reason, there seems to be similarities between those two personalities, right?
I would agree. Yeah.
Self-destructive, sadly, a bit. You know, you don't want to so analyze him too much, but he had a nature about him that was self-defeating, kind of, in a way, you know, and it's hard. If he were the bass player or the guitar player, maybe it would have worked, but as the singer, you kind of, you know, can really damage the band's image if you're up there doing that. So
he didn't want to be the singer.
Yeah.
He was always saying, let's get a singer.
That's true. He did say that.
All the time. He'd be like, I would be fine if we just had somebody else singing. So he could just hide in the corner and play the guitar.
Yeah. You reminded me of something. His wife or fiance, right? They didn't marry.
Fiance.
Said to us in an email recently, or maybe you knew this, that David wanted Swell to go on us and start playing shows. And I didn't know that. So
David said to her that he thought it would be really fun to be in the audience.
Wow.
Swell.
Okay, so he was, such an accomplished artist that he was almost on the verge of realizing every artist's dream, which is to disappear and to just be a ghost, not on stage, but watching you guys perform his songs.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The other two guys just walked in the door.
Niko and John are
I'll let
here.
them sit down maybe, and you can talk, answer them
Sure.
questions. You guys are here?
Yeah.
Come on in, John.
We got lost in the farm yard there. Hello.
This is
Hi
John.
there.
Nice to meet you. What's your name?
I'm Michael.
I'm Mike.
So John is basically David, not specifically, but he's playing the acoustic guitar and doing 95% of the singing.
Okay. All right. What's the other 5%?
I'm going to sing one song, and we're also singing a lot of background vocals
Okay.
to like support everything. And I think Sean might sing one song.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And John, you know, I was actually asking Sean and Monte about the very tightrope that it must be, or it must feel like, to sing David's lead vocals without sounding like you're trying to emulate anything. I mean, you know, what's your perspective? What's your angle?
Well, I've never really considered myself a singer, and you know, fortunately, the delivery is such where it's subdued, you know, to a certain point. I do feel that it's important to emulate him to a certain point. I think his accent and certain ways that he pronounced words in the song are kind of crucial, I think, to the songs. So, you know, I have no pride. I want to do the best I can to make it sound like him. You know, he did teach me how to play guitar. So, you know, so that's important that I try to get that part as close as I can.
Got the rhythm, got the strumming.
Yeah, he had a very unique way to strum an instrument, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where he would, like, you know, sit down and show me ways of doing that. We were roommates at one point when the first record was being made. So we're flatmates. We shared the 41 space between him and myself and his girlfriend.
Niko, do you want to come in? Sure. I'm gonna bring Niko in.
Okay.
Hey there,
Hi, Niko.
Niko.
Town is not too far from Lyon, and I would have come to see you next Thursday. But yeah, I'm just, you know, on this parenthesis abroad for a year, and so I'm not going to be back until the end of June, so I won't get to see you. But it's, yeah, I will sorely miss that night. I really wish I would see you. I have a lot of friends who are going to be there in Lyon.
Nice.
They'll report back. I understand Malta is very special, though, so I hope you enjoy that.
It is. Yeah. It's a very, very interesting mix of cultures because of its geographical location. You know, it's just north of Tunisia and south of Sicily. So it's really a bit of a strange hub, historically, culturally speaking. It's very, very interesting.
French speaking completely?
English.
English. Okay. I think of
Yeah,
the
it
most.
used to be a
You know, you said that.
it used to be a British colony.
I see.
Yeah, it used to be French before that, but they got tired of the French and and they called the British for help.
The last mistake.
Let me squeeze in. Michael and Renee, I'm going to go, but I just want to say thank you for this. And I wanted to say, everyone that was part of that 41 record, if you can contact them and tell them that we'll put them on the guest list of any show they want to go to, apart from Paris.
Okay.
Okay, because Paris is pretty much filled up, I think. But the other shows, if they want to come, tell them to reach us via social media or whatever. Cool.
Will do.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Okay. And so, how are the rehearsals going on? I mean, Sean and Monte have already answered from their perspective, but what about you guys?
It's been, we're going to get mystical here. It's been a really kind of, it's been pretty deep, you know. For me, I played live with Swell for 10 years between 93 and 2003, spent a lot of time playing gigs. And so, I mean, bringing up the memories of the songs themselves that are 25 years old or whatever, but then all the four of us together, it really brings this sounds really sugary and too sweet, but it brings David back in a weird way. I think once you get to be a certain age, you understand how things live on when they're gone, and sometimes you bring them back. You know, the memory comes, and playing the music and being together and the camaraderie, and you know, music is something beyond language. It's an older form of communication, and it's been strange and beautiful and a little scary.
Okay.
To be honest. Fun.
Great. Okay, good. Well, in hindsight, and I suppose, you know, I'm going to ask you guys the same question as I was asking Sean and Monte beforehand, but did you listen to a lot of Swell in the past few years? And I guess the second part of my question is, what are your favorite Swell songs to listen to and to play?
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to Swell ever since I was in the band. You know, even after I was in the band, I had, you know, the desire to listen to the music. You know, it was always in heavy rotation, to be honest with you. And you know, when I was invited to be in this tour about a year ago, I guess, you know, it came as really good news. And I hadn't really been in a band in a long time, you know, and I decided that I was going to busk and play the songs live. I live down in Las Vegas, and I've been busking the songs, and it's been fun. That's how I've done the bulk of my practice. You know, I never played and sang at the same time, so that wasn't going to happen by itself. So I realized I had to put in the effort. You know, it was one thing to sing on top of the songs as an audition, but it was another thing to actually do it.
For sure.
So, yeah, I had to put in some serious time. I have to say my favorite song is probably At Long Last, because that's kind of feels kind of personal to me, because at long last I'm in this group again.
Yeah.
You know,
I see. Yeah. Okay.
I have to say, for myself, I got pretty far away from Swell. Swell was so much my world for the years that we were touring together, and I have my own band, Oxbow, San Francisco band, and just really focused on that and got away from Swell. I learned so much about playing, about writing, watching Monte and David and Sean, and then Monte and David, and making records and seeing how they dealt with record labels and all that stuff. I learned a lot and went away. And I think for me, that's why coming back to it now after so long, it is a super nostalgic thing. I'm like a great audience member because it's like, oh yeah, Swell. And I have such deep memories and good memories. And it's sort of fresh again, having been away. And for me, probably, I like the this is a theme. I like the emotional, mystical songs. I like Everyday Sunshine. I like the ones that are pretty heavy and interesting that way. And
Yeah.
We're feeling those songs on these rehearsals.
Okay. Okay, great. I can see Monte in the background. What about you?
Favorite Swell songs?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know it's a tough one.
I would probably say one of the songs to me that really encapsulates everything about Swell is What I Always Wanted from Too Many Days Without Thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That to me is the epitome of Swell.
Okay.
I have good memories making that recording also. But
Yeah.
Sean wasn't on For All the Beautiful People, but that's, I think, my favorite Swell record.
Yeah, mine too.
Most people think that's a weird record. I think it's a very strange record
Why is it strange?
because the songs are just weird.
Right. I got to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm biased because that's the album I wrote the most music on.
Yeah, I got to love that particular record because I listened to it while driving, and I think that's the key. You know, to listen to it in its full length while driving with the landscape passing by. That's, you know, I've never had epiphanies as strong and intense as you know, listening to that particular record while driving.
Yeah, like the song "Oh My My" to me is also one of my favorite.
Yeah,
Swell songs.
that's probably my favorite Swell song aside from
Right?
what we're playing. Oh My My. Yeah. Yeah.
We played "Oh My My" once live, I think, in 1998, and we realized that it was impossible to play live.
I know how to play that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's
I
three
learned
bass
it.
lines.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did hire a couple other bass players.
Or maybe loop your bass lines or something. But
Yeah, that would be complicated.
I have
Right.
a 600 you could borrow. Try it.
yeah, in a way, on For All the Beautiful People, I have a feeling that the drummer at the time was definitely kind of reviving Sean's style. You can feel it in a lot of the songs, right?
Rob Ellis from PJ Harvey.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
two drummers that think alike in some ways.
yeah, very lyrical drummers.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. And where do you all live now? Do you guys did you occasionally get together in the past few years on other occasions?
Niko lives in San Francisco. I used to live in San Francisco, and of course, we've been friends for 40 years. So we hung out all the time, beyond Swell, without Swell, besides Swell.
Okay.
Now I live in Seattle, and so we don't see each other as much.
Which is where I grew up.
Right. Okay.
But
And
yeah,
Sean lives in Santa Barbara, and I would see him. He would come up to San Francisco a couple times a year, probably, and we'd hang out. I'd record him for other things.
The last time I saw David and Sean was when they were recording the record in Santa Barbara.
really,
Yeah,
2003.
yeah. So that was the last time I've seen anyone.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw John at Tommy Guerrero's 50th birthday party.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
California. So that was 7 years ago.
Yeah. I live in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've been hanging down there and busking the songs and, you know, bringing David in. It's kind of a similar neighborhood to how we lived, you know, real rough and dirty, a lot of homeless people. So busking the Swell songs has been really, really appropriate in a lot of ways. It's made it like infinitely more enjoyable just based on the environment in which I was putting my speaker on 10, you know, just saying, here we go, folks. You know, this is what this area really deserves, you know, not some new dance hit, you know. I was just look for a place where I could really turn that music up loud and just bring my friend in, you know. It was just me and those songs too, so it was really easy to imagine him right there with me, you know, helping me out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. You know, playing some, especially some songs off of 41 in that particular environment must feel very, very relevant.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, then the people that appreciated it too. You know, the people that really would stop and connect, but were very distinct. And it was fun to observe who, you know, paid attention and who didn't.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Okay.
Which is a sharp contrast to how this will be, you know, where people are actually showing up to actually listen and know the song. So,
have you heard or received any feedback after the announcement of the tour? Do you know if, I mean, you were mentioning that Paris was, you know, probably going to be pretty packed, but what about the other places?
So far, everything looks good. I mean, there's a couple small shows, one in Germany that we don't have a lot of advanced ticket sales, but I think everything's going pretty well, especially in France, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Belgium, I mean, we're playing at La Botanique in Brussels, and we've had, I don't know, we've sold half the tickets in advance, so that should be good too.
Yeah. All right. And is the one gig in, I'm sorry, is the one gig in Germany where you've not received a lot of pre-bookings yet, is it the one on April 12th?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the irony.
I know. It's a very small venue. It's only 200 capacity or something.
Okay.
The Forum, so it'll be fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. We're doing the best, really. And it's a memorial, and we're going to play the songs as a tribute. And if people are there, that's great. But we're going to enjoy the moment, no matter what.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's next? I guess, you know, just to wrap things up. What's happening at the end of this tour for you guys in your respective personal lives, and for Swell as well?
Well, we don't know about Swell. I mean, this tour is all we have. I mean, if there's interest, maybe we'll talk about something else, but there's nothing planned. And then just back to normal life. Back to work.
As normal as it gets.
Yeah.
Are you recording the shows?
Recording them? Yeah, there's a few shows that we're going to do proper multi-track recordings. And we're going to record every show just with, you know, a feed from the console, from the front of house, and then with a little Zoom recorder, little handheld stereo recorder. So we'll have reference recordings, but a couple of the shows I'll actually be able to mix, and we'll probably release them on our website.
Great. Okay, what about you guys?
Since you asked, my own band Oxbow, we have a record coming out in July on
That's great news.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. So Love's Holiday is the name of that, and we'll be out on tour in Europe in September. So we're looking at maybe the first 2 weeks of September for Oxbow, and maybe then the States after that. So that's going to be a shift of gears. It's quite different band, but so that'll be the rest of the year for me.
Nice. It's been 6 years, right, since the previous one?
That's right. Yeah, 2017. Yeah.
Right.
I've been working on remixing some 60s songs from my friend Peter Noon, who was in the band Herman's Hermits.
Yeah.
In the 60s. Yeah, I've remixed 18 of his songs and made them danceable, and all the instrumentation using his vocal stems, and most likely going to be, you know, playing some shows with him, opening up as a DJ, because he's still playing a lot. So doing some state fairs would probably be the logical place where there's a younger crowd, you know, listen to his stuff. And so I've been doing a lot of that, and I'm probably going to start remixing some other 60s songs too, because I'm having a lot of fun with it. Yeah. And, you know, and there's probably a market for that in Las Vegas. You know, it's just a 60s orientated remix DJ doing all original remixes. So that's probably what I'm going to focus on. And I know I'll obviously be a lot more content, you know, having done this in my life, you know, and seeing these guys again and doing all this. It's been a real high honor, to say the least, you know. Like, are you kidding me? You know, being Swell again after I left the band in 1991. Like, wow. And then to be playing different parts and singing, and he's playing my part.
Yes, which is
Okay.
Him play my parts, you know.
He's very kind about. It's a different. I'm a different person. So
I didn't write enough of the parts to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All good though.
We're going to get to practice now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Nice
See you
meeting
in
you.
Paris.
All right. Bye.
There's our rehearsal space.
Yeah.
Oh.